Nimona is Netflix's newest animated film based off of the graphic novel of the same name. It introduces us to a futuristic fantasy world filled with knights, shapeshifters, and tons of interesting concepts. But is this film a contender for Animated Film of the Year, or is it just another Netflix throwaway? What's up, guys? Welcome back to the MontyVerse. We just watched Nimona, and we are super excited to talk about it. So, Nikki, why don't you tell us a little bit more about Nimona for those of us who don't know much about the concept?
Absolutely. So kind of like you said, it takes place in this futuristic setting that also has a lot of medieval aesthetic to it. And it revolves around this knight who is framed for a crime that he didn't commit. And the only way that he can prove his innocence is by teaming up with the titular Nimona, who is a shape-shifting teen who may not be all that she appears to be.
Yes, and I think this movie does a really good job of creating a very unique feeling and looking world to tell its story in. Right off the bat, the setting, I don't know if they ever name it, but without a name, it's actually a really cool setting. It reminds me a lot of Attack on Titan, the walls of an Attack on Titan, because it's a gated-in, futuristic, medieval kind of city that has this castle at the center of it and these walls that surround it on the outside to protect it from a monster that came to the land thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
And kind of the story takes some interesting turns with that setting.
I want to say real quick before we move on to the plot is something that you brought up that I thought was kind of funny is even though it's very futuristic and like that's a lot of the inspiration for it, they still use swords. Like just even though they have laser beams in this, but they also still use swords.
They have like futuristic crossbows.
Yeah.
It's a kind of a mix. So this almost takes like medieval design and fuses it with futuristic designs. It's like if Blade Runner and like the Dark Ages had a baby. This would be the aesthetic that it was going for. And I kind of really liked that. I liked that they used crossbows, like futuristic crossbows and swords. It gave it a more medieval, give it a more like like chivalry, give it more of like a civility to it,
right?
Than as of like just laser beams, just a bunch of laser swords and laser beams shooting at each other.
The other thing that I kind of brought up that we'll get into a little bit is I also wondered if it was maybe thematic in that even though this is clearly a more futuristic setting, it's definitely not like the dark times or anything. There's advanced technology, some of the fashion is current, but I also wonder like, is the more medieval stuff like they're stuck in kind of an archaic mindset almost?
Absolutely. I was literally just about to bring that up when you asked if it was intentional. I 100% think that it was intentional to fuse medieval with modern because of the themes of the story, which are questioning things that came before, the mindset of the past, and embracing futuristic concepts, embracing the new,
and even honestly just embracing anything different for that matter.
Absolutely. And man, I guess that will lead us directly into the plot of this film, which, as Nikki said, it follows a knight who was framed for a crime he didn't commit, and he tries to clear his name by teaming up with Nimona. And I have to say, I loved Nimona. I was a little worried when the movie started, because while I did like the acting and I did like the design and everything, I thought we were gonna get like a standard, kind of like The Fugitive, but animated,
right,
in the beginning.
Yeah, because it's pretty intense right off the bat, and kind of the overall tone, because it gets pretty humorous. It takes a very serious tone at the beginning with the titular crime. It's very serious, very, I would say, dark in a lot of ways. Like, we could see the themes they're tackling almost immediately, because our titular knight, who, well, not titular knight, I'm sorry. We're using titular.
I was so, like, we've been using titular so much that it just came out. Our knight, Ballister Braveheart, who the name, which was the name, Boldheart, sorry, which was his given name by the Queen. He was essentially handpicked as a child. He was a commoner, and he had helped the Queen somehow, right?
I don't know if he might have helped her, but her main point was he had a good heart.
He had a good heart, and so she chose him to kind of show that anyone could become a knight, because in this story, in the setting of this story, only people with noble blood can become a knight. So she's like, no, I'm going to choose a commoner. And in his backstory, we found out that he worked the hardest and trained his way to becoming the best of the new knight recruits in the land. So we already, right off the bat, we're tackling some pretty major themes with classism. As we can see, like, the lower class is kind of rooting for him and really kind of putting their stake into him, watching him rise the ranks.
Right, but then there's also the people who chime in saying like, oh, this isn't what the original ruler would have wanted.
Will they embrace him?
Right. So there's the question of that, and again, kind of the antiquity and, oh, this is different than what we had before.
Exactly.
Is this gonna be okay?
And that begins to introduce us to our secondary theme, which is different. And the things that are like, is being different okay?
Yeah.
Like, and that was a big thing with Ballister in the beginning. Like, they're trying to spread that propaganda of you shouldn't like him, he's different. But we'll get more into that later. Once Nimona is introduced into the film, they totally change the tone.
Everything like goes, because basically Nimona is kind of that shithead kid that is always goofing around and wants to like light something on fire and basically stir shit for the hell of it, but in the best way humanly possible.
Oh my gosh, Chloe Grace Moretz is so entertaining as Nimona, and the animation of the things they do with the character of Nimona are so great. Like whenever they go metal and it just like zooms in on their face and they have these glowing eyes, like I love that.
And the sharpened teeth.
The constant shape shifting into different animals at different times. Like, loved it. Such an injection of life that gave this film such a unique tone.
Yeah.
From the second Nimona is introduced moving forward. And as she developed, and as they developed their relationship with Ballister, the chemistry between Riz Ahmed, who plays Ballister, Boldheart, and Chloe Grace Moretz, who plays Nimona, is really, really wonderful and infectious in a lot of ways. And I love seeing them on screen together. The characters interact so well, and they kind of bounce, and they use each other as a conduit to kind of tell their story and grow as people.
No, definitely. And I think the way they tell their stories is they don't, because this is not a very long movie, and I think that they utilize that time well, and they don't harp on certain details, and they reveal things when it makes the most sense.
Yes.
And that plays into a pretty great scene when we think Nimona is about to tell their backstory, and it takes a swerve that is kind of, it's a little bit cheap, but it's also pretty funny at the same time.
It's so fun, and Nimona's over-the-top charisma definitely counters the brooding seriousness of Ballister. And when they both kind of rub off on each other a little bit towards the end is when things really start to get emotional and heartfelt, and I really loved seeing those two characters grow together.
But there's definitely like an even wider cast of characters who makes an impact. Least of all is, you might know him best from the Try Guys, Eugene Lee Yang as...
Eugene.
I'm gonna screw up this name. Ambrosius Goldenloin.
Let's
just call him Goldenloin.
Goldenloin, because that's the sickest name ever. Amazing name. Eugene, good for you, Eugene. You killed it, dude.
I think he has the standout acting performance in this movie.
He's actually got me so invested in that character. He created such a characterization for Ambrosius.
Yeah.
In a way that I think only Eugene could.
He could, because that character really could have just been I don't want to say throwaway because he has a huge significance to the story, but he could have just been like almost the standard side character who has to like just keep things going. If that makes sense. But he invests so much personality, so much like, I'm trying to think of what's
a good way to put it? Ambrosius is a character that could very easily become unlikable to the audience.
Right.
Very they skirt a very thin line of this character. We could add, if you're not careful, you could hate this character, and this is a character that we don't know if we should hate or not.
Right, because his big thing is that he's part of kind of the same entity that is shunning Ballister. But
I think Eugene's performance gives so much heart and so much life to the character that I think we're really along for the ride with him,
yeah,
as opposed to rooting against him or rooting for him.
Right, because he definitely does things that we as the audience are thinking like, no, like don't do that.
I found myself very invested. But when he was making choices, I'm like, no, don't do it.
But and not just the performance, but the writing. But you also understood. Okay, I can understand where he's coming from at the same time.
Oh, absolutely.
So I think that's what makes him such an effective character, is that he actually has more complexity than he maybe had any right to have.
I just was really surprised by Eugene because, again, I wasn't sure what to expect, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just we're a fan of the Try Guys. We watch a lot of Try Guys videos. So when I found out he was in this movie, it definitely made me want to watch it.
Oh, that made me like probably the most excited about this movie.
But I came in with not no expectations, but I came in curious as to what his performance would be like. And I found myself at the end of the movie going, wow, he was fantastic. And I really hope that he segues this into more acting roles.
Oh, yeah.
Whether live action or voice acting. I think he would do great in any sense of the terms, because he did such a great job. Yeah. Really, really well done.
He was phenomenal. And I don't think there was anyone who was necessarily even bad in this movie.
No.
But I was gonna say, like, he was great, but I would say there's probably like one of the, not even necessarily like they ruined the movie, but one of the lower points are some of the other characters.
Yeah, I think Beck Bennett just does a Beck Bennett in this movie. They just hired him to just be Beck Bennett, and it's not that it's not good. It's just Beck Bennett. Well, and that's fine.
I mean, it's not even him. It's definitely the character, because he basically plays this other knight who is like kind of the stereotypical asshole who's putting Riz Ahmed down. And usually, this is funny, like I for some reason thought of Bumper Allen from Pitch Perfect.
That's a good comparison.
He's like the asshole, but he's played so well and he's written to at least be entertaining. This guy is just very annoying.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. And then contrast that with another really good vocal performance from Frances Conroy.
Oh, yeah.
Who plays the director.
Oh, yeah.
Really good. There's some really strong voice performances in this movie. I shouldn't even say voice performances, just strong acting in this film all around. Really impressed with them. So overall, I would have to say acting and character-wise, 2 big thumbs up for me on that standpoint. But what really blew me away was the writing of the film.
Absolutely.
And the story. I mean, this is obviously based off of the graphic novel by ND Stevenson. I was familiar with the graphic novel in the past. I've heard it before. It's an Eisner Award-winning graphic novel for best reprint, because I think it originally started as a webcomic on Tumblr, if I remember correctly. And then it was reprinted by Penguin Publishing, I think. Before ND kind of started writing for like major comic companies, like they worked for Boom, and he worked for Boom and Marvel. So I've heard of it before, but I didn't really know anything about the story. So I kind of went into this blind, and to get this lovely animated film that's so well written and tells such a thematically strong story about acceptance and about identity and about, hey, just because we've been doing this for 1,000 years doesn't mean
it's the best way to do it,
exactly,
or that the tradition is justified any further.
And it's a film that can be watched at any age level, for any person, and to understand it, nothing's thrown in your face. Everything feels natural. The story just works on so many different levels for me, and I just found it like a really sweet and endearing movie. And it had so much heart to it as well.
No, absolutely. And that's what I was hoping for, because I had pretty high expectations, because I had seen pretty positive early reviews for it. But I was still blown away because, like you said, I think because Nimona brings a very lighthearted feel to this.
Yes.
And the humorous writing for them is phenomenal. But then when they get into the somber moments, I think they really make you feel for not just them, but for the narrative as a whole. And like you said, the themes that they're tackling that I think are this universal, whether it's kind of the class struggle that Ballister has to deal with, or even, and maybe to start getting into this, the fact that you could almost read, and I'm sure this was the intention, Nimona's own struggles as definitely through a queer lens.
Yeah, absolutely.
For yearning for acceptance.
I think it's 100% intentional to read Nimona as gender fluid, because Nimona has said multiple times in the movie, Ballister literally tells them hey, just be a girl. It's easier for you to be a girl.
Be a girl, or even asking, like, what are you? Who are you? And Nimona just shoots back every single time, I'm Nimona. I am Nimona.
So it does a really good job of telling a complex story about gender fluidity and gender identity.
For someone who's always shifting no matter what.
For a lens that's very easily acceptable and digestible for anyone of any age. And it doesn't do it in a way that is brainwashing anyone. It's telling a human story. A very real, a very human, a very heartfelt story.
Right, and it also displays kind of the less tolerant people who...
Absolutely.
It's just the idea of, oh, something different, something we're not used to, that must mean it's bad and dangerous without any real justification. And then when Nimona rightfully maybe gets upset about it and is trying to defend themselves, that just people incorrectly reinforcing their perceptions of them.
Absolutely. And there's this constant struggle in the movie about, if we don't understand it, we can't accept it.
Yeah.
If we can't accept what we don't understand. And what this movie does so well that I love is they never make you understand Nimona. There's never spelling out like, this is what she is, this is why she is what she, like, this is why they are who they are, this is what makes them tick. This, like, nothing is spelled out for you. No. You as the audience aren't meant to fully understand Nimona as what they are.
Yeah.
But you as the audience are meant to accept them, and I did.
I think it's definitely a matter of, because like I touched on earlier in terms of Nimona's backstory, is that it doesn't matter necessarily like what someone's origin is or where they came from. It's just, that's just what they are and who they are. And that should be enough. Absolutely,
100%. Charming animated film. Really loved it. Makes you want to go back and read the graphic novel. So I might check that out. Because this was wonderful. And I would love to live in this world a little bit longer. But Nikki, it's time for our rating. And I'm trying to figure out what we're going to rate it out of as I'm thinking about this.
I know they talk about nachos at one point.
Okay. That's their secret code word. Out of 5 nachos, what would you rate Nimona?
I thought it was absolutely wonderful. It's animated beautifully. These characters are fantastic, as are the performances. There's a few things I wish they maybe expanded upon a little bit more, but overall, really enjoyed it. So I'm going to give it 4 out of 5 nachos. Strong rating.
For me, I kind of agree with Nikki. I really love this movie. There was a couple of things I wish were tweaked a little bit here and there, but overall, had so much fun with it. Such a great time for me. Went into this with no expectations whatsoever. Found myself really enjoying it. So I will also be giving this 4 nachos out of 5. I think that you guys should see this as soon as possible, because guess what? It's streaming now on Netflix, so you can go watch it. If you guys like this video, make sure to click on the link to watch more of our reviews and give the video a big thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, subscribe and hit the notification bell. Until next time, stay versed.